That's right. This is the Pregame Engineer and Tailgate Mayor Racing Podcast, episode number 28 for Saturday, December 12, 2015. I'm Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace, joined as always with Pregame Engineer Andrew Sherwin. What's happening, man?
You know what? I don't even know what to say. I'm in my happy place. I'm at my house. I'm watching my TV. I'm doing a podcast, drinking beer, getting ready for a UFC fight. It's all good.
I think you got it all covered. We are, as he said, at Sherwin's House of Ill Repute and Broken Dreams.
Always a shout out to Rip CK.
Yeah, and so one thing that I love right now is Sherwin's Christmas lights. If you're on the Periscope, you can probably see it. He's got the inside and the outside decorated. It's looking great, man.
Yeah, I like the lights. You know, I always liked the lights as a kid. We used to drive around and look at everybody's lights, and I always liked the house. Like, my favorite house was the one that had, you know how people used to do the candles in the window?
Uh-huh.
They just did blue. They had blue lights in all the windows. So outside my house, maybe I'll tweet a picture of it out. I have all blue. I've got the icicle lights over the garage that are blue. I've got blue lights in the bush on the right side of the house, and then I got the mailbox decked out in blue lights.
Yeah,
too.
The mailbox looking good all the way down. And then on the inside, it's straight up tacky Christmas.
Speaking of,
I
didn't turn the lights outside on yet.
Oh, he's going outside to put those on. So
I can't figure out how to work the timer.
Can't figure out how to work the timer, so he's trying to remind his own self. Now they're pretty. Now they're looking good.
All right.
People can see the house now. So we've got a shout-out for today.
Actually, sure do.
Before we shout out, what are you drinking? I should say what you're drinking, but what are we drinking, Sherwin?
What are we drinking? I think we're drinking one of England's finest brown ales, Newcastle.
From the north side of England, we've got the, I would say 22 ounce, but this is in
whatever metric.
Yeah, we're both looking at the bottle trying to figure out metric
1
kilogram.
pint and 2.6 fluid ounces.
All right, that's how much it is.
So 18.6 ounces.
Yep. So they owe us another.
Not quite a bomber. They owe us like 3.5 ounces of beer.
Yeah. So
BS.
I'm sure we'll make up for it tonight. But before we talk about tonight, we do have a shout out. So Sherwin's going to give us a shout out here momentarily. But before he gives us a shout out, we need the shout out sound.
There it is.
Close enough.
I love our screaming goat. So Kevin Hinkle followed the podcast handle, and Kevin Hinkle is an ARCA race driver. He also drives in the Dale Jarrett. Didn't get that out. The Dale Jarrett Racing Adventure. He's an instructor, and he also owns KH Automotive and KH Motorsports. So shout out to Kevin Hinkle at KH Motorsports. Thanks for the follow. I hope you download the show.
That sounded, I mean, his resume there, he sounds like a pretty, first off, pretty cool guy. And secondly, you know, we're making some waves here now with this podcast, huh?
We actually got a racer following the podcast, which means that we must be saying something worthy of listening to.
Maybe he'll come to the podcast in the off season and tell us something.
Yeah, if he, shout out back to us, Kevin, if you are listening. We'd love to have you on the show. We're learning how to do guests. We've done one. Shout out Matt Bishop, MB Photos. But yeah, you know, thanks for following.
So we're here for a specific reason tonight. Saturday night, the December 12th, is UFC number 194, which the pundits are calling either the best or in the top 3 UFC cards there's ever been.
It's either the best it's ever been, which is hard to measure. I think 100 sticks out to people that have been following the UFC for the last 6 or 8 years, or maybe the whole time it's been going on. Yeah, I mean, this card's crazy. You got 2 mains, you got 2 championship fights, and you got a bunch of killers on the card.
Aldo McGregor is the big...
Conor McGregor.
I can't even say it. We're both just... We ain't really been into this Newcastle very long.
No, we haven't. It's kind of sad.
For us to both be messing up words. But Aldo McGregor, and then we've also got the Weidman and whoever he's...
Weidman and Luke Rockhold.
Okay. And that's going to be a championship fight.
Yeah, Weidman holds the belt. Rockhold is looking to, obviously, to take that for his first championship. The Aldo McGregor fight is actually champion versus interim champion because Aldo was hurt and could not fight And the last time there was championship in the 135 division.
Something interesting I just noticed was the heaviest fight in the main card is a middleweight fight.
Yeah, that's Weidman and Rockhold, right?
Yeah, and Ronaldo Souza and Yoel Romero, also middleweight, but that the 175
middleweight's what, 190?
175.
175.
Yeah.
Hey, Eunice 2516. Appreciate you getting on the Periscope there.
To help celebrate the UFC fight, we've got a few things on the menu today. It's a stick to your bones menu.
You damn right. So last weekend, as practice, I did a really small brisket just to figure out like if I could get the right temperature in my smoker and the right duration, etc. And so it came out pretty successfully. So we got a nice slab of brisket in the smoker. It's wrapped up now. It's been on since 6 hours is kind of the magic deal there. So we'll be pulling it off around 7. And we've also got collards on the stove, courtesy of Tailgate Mayor.
Yeah,
He's
those
the
are going to be good.
man.
I love me some collards now.
Yeah, he's going to whoop us up some homemade, no oven mac and cheese. So y'all probably want to get that recipe or that process anyway.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. Just look it up on the internet, how to make yourself a bechamel sauce or however the French call it or whoever that is that calls it.
Oh, yeah.
Bechamel.
Yeah.
But by the time that you can boil noodles, you can just make you a sauce.
Whoop up the sauce.
Yeah, so it's totally worth not doing the box stuff for that. And on top of all that, after we're all stuffed, we've got chili cheese dip, courtesy of Sherwin.
The crock pot is full of chicken chili cheese dip. So,
and it's got the habanero
rotel. The habanero rotel. We're probably all going to regret that.
Both tonight and tomorrow.
Got both cream cheese and a Monterey Jack. So that should be pretty. Oh, check out the flyover.
Oh, neat. So we're also looking at the Army-Navy game going on. Live while we're sitting here doing the podcast. It looks like they've got some. Those look like 18s. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Oh, and there's the pilots. So, we got to experience something really cool at the Georgia Tech game a few weeks ago. They did a flyover in Atlanta over Bobby Dodd, and the pilots were actually Georgia Tech graduates. So they came on the field at halftime and got recognized, and they pulled their flight suits apart Superman style, and it's at the THWG, which is kind of Georgia Tech acronym folklore. To hell with Georgia, which we're not trying to piss off any fans of Georgia, but it was still pretty neat.
Yeah, it's kind of our call sign in a lot of ways. So, yeah, it was cool to see, and the crowd lighting up and everything. So let's get into it, man. We're officially in the off-season. I know I said that last time, but we were talking about the race that had just happened. So this is our first podcast with no race on the tail end and no race on the front end.
Oh, that's right. We did have a recap from the championship weekend.
Yep.
But then we skipped a week for the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, we skipped a week for the holidays, and then we did our season recap.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're now just BSing on whatever we want to talk about.
Yeah, I think one of the things you're going to find in the off season with us is we are nerdy engineer type folks, so we're going to try to find something about race cars that's technical to discuss. Rusty's going to bring some of that up later. And
I'm excited about that. That's going to be a fun segment.
It's going to be a fun conversation.
And I'm learning stuff while I'm doing it and researching stuff, and we're just going to take one piece of the car and talk about that piece and what it does and how to adjust and that sort of thing and what it means. So I am excited about that one. We'll get onto it here shortly. But before we get to that, it's not a NASCAR sanctioned race. Matter of fact, it's a nobody sanctioned race, but we talked about it last week. The Snowball Derby has happened out in Pensacola, Florida.
The Snowball Derby is probably the most famous non-nationally affiliated super late model race that there is. And, that there was 50-something cars that showed up to get into a 35-car show or whatever it ends up being. Maybe you have some details I didn't look at.
I didn't write those down.
I probably shouldn't have just made stuff up. But yeah, anyway, it's a very popular super late model race that happens at Five Flags Speedway in Pensacola, Florida. And it's a whole weekend process. I think there's like 6 divisions, but obviously the main one is the super late models.
Yeah. And so we had a bit of controversy on this one that has I don't know, gripped the nation, if you will, in that.
Yeah, I think it's happened 4 times in maybe the last 12 years or something, so there's a lot of controversy. One of the things that the director of this race holds near and dear to his heart is you cannot fail inspection in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
It doesn't matter what it is that caused you to fail. If you're outside their tolerances, you are disqualified.
Right. And the chief inspector, Ricky Brooks is his name, and he is well known for taking a very tight measure against everybody's car. And like you said, just zero tolerance before the race, after the race, and making sure that everything's right. Chase Elliott has been on the losing end of that recently.
Yep, that's right.
But this time he was on the winning end of it. So Chris Bell had crossed a stripe first. And then the interesting controversy here. He had celebrated a bit. He rolled around the track. And while rolling around, they said he got about 5 pounds of debris on his tire. Now, I
looked at the tires.
Pounds. I was going to say.
I looked at them. There's 5 pounds of rubber on those things.
My first thought was, how can you get 5 pounds of rubber on that thing or debris? That seems a little sketchy. But they like you said, they took a picture of that tire. You look at that tire, maybe we'll have to tweet it out or something. But you look at that tire, holy mackerel. That thing must have been screaming hot.
Yeah, well, think about Dover, where under caution, they just peel all the rubber off the track. Like, it just goes black to white under caution. And you're talking about cleaning up tires and stuff. And basically what happened, y'all, is, I mean, he didn't do anything to cool off the tires before doing his celebratory slowdown laps and picked all this rubber up, and it changed the balance of the car.
Right. And so they posthumously named Chase Elliott the winner of the Snowball Derby.
That's right. And for those that don't know, Chris Bell was driving for Kyle Busch Motorsports. So that gave it even more of a national exposure because it was Kyle Busch Motorsports.
So being a fan podcast, I guess the next question is, what do you think about that?
I think it's, I mean, on the one side, obviously I'm happy for a driver that I like a lot. I'm a fan of.
I should say not necessarily that Chase Elliott gets the win. He won, he gets the win. But the hard line, it could go either way, and it has gone either way. Like I just said, Chase Elliott's been on the losing end of that before. I don't know if it's under same circumstances. He might have just had it weighed down a little weird. But Chris Bell passes inspection beforehand, meaning his car. And what by the way, what the problem was that it wasn't balanced within tolerance.
Right.
So and they're saying they'd picked up so much debris on the right rear going around the track that it added weight to the right rear that put it out of tolerance. So that was the issue. But is that is that a problem with this race though?
I don't think so, because most of the races in the time frame that people are talking about were settled fairly without issue.
Yeah. One thing that sits weird with me, I think it's because being a NASCAR fan, NASCAR never takes a win away from anybody. And the reason is, and they've said it before, they want the fans to see whoever crossed that stripe first is the winner so that they can say, we've seen the winner of the race.
Right.
That's a hardline stand that they make. In this race, it's very different philosophy in that we want to make sure that the guy who crosses finish is within tolerances, and if he's not on a no tolerance level, excuse me, I think some jalapeno just got to me that
hit your cough button.
Yeah, right. So it sits weird with me. I don't have an answer. I don't have a solution to that. Other than
you are wrong.
put it on the driver to say, well, you just can't make these victory laps and stuff.
Well, the thing is, a lot of crew chiefs weighed in on Twitter, saying basically, these are things that you're aware of when you go into the race. I mean, there are crew chiefs that specifically strategize with their driver about what he can and can't do if he wins in order to prevent this kind of thing from happening. And that's why I get to the point of, yeah, I'm okay with it because you know what the rules are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't argue against that. Again, it still sits a little weird, but I get it. I didn't see a whole lot of screaming and yelling from drivers, crew chiefs, even Chris Bell. Kyle Busch kind of stood up for him. It sounded like the manager walking out and getting tossed so that the pitcher doesn't have to be tossed.
Right.
But Kyle Busch had a lot to say about it. But And I feel his pain there. But, yeah, like you said, it's the rules. Everybody knows it, and that's how it is.
You know who I feel bad for when it happens to is somebody who, has a run what you brung team. You know, like they have one car. They've been building it in their garage. It's their hobby. They really love racing. They just got it all put together the right way, lost their mind winning the race, and it gets taken away.
Yeah.
But the thing is, in my mind, if you look back, I think Chase Elliott has one Snowball Derby win, and it was the one he won a couple years ago and was disqualified from. But those guys are going to go on to bigger and better things. Chase has a cup ride. Chris has opportunities in the trucks and Xfinity. He's going to move on to a bigger career than what the Snowball Derby win would mean. Everybody wants that trophy. Racers want every trophy. Let's just get that straight. Racers want every trophy, just like every football player wants to win every game, wants to win every play. But to me as a fan, it's like, well, whoever crosses finish line first won. Right. Whether he's got it next to his name in Wikipedia or not.
Right. So that's a Snowball Derby. I was kind of following it. One of the shames right now, or the shame with that, is that you have to pay about $30 to be able to watch it on pay-per-view. It's a little bit steep for me for a single race. I'm not sure if I'd pay that for Martinsville or something if all the other races I can catch.
Yeah, that's a challenge. If you could figure out, if whoever's broadcasting, I think it was 51 Motorsports or whatever, or 51, I can't remember what they're called, but if you could figure out how to make it come on my TV in HD, then maybe we are talking $30. Maybe. Saturday night entertainer. But the problem is they go up against major championship college football.
Yeah, that's
not a recipe to win in television ratings.
Put you a little advertising bar at the bottom, sell that advertisement, and put it on pay-per-view for $10, and I'll have it on.
You have a lot more people would buy it, and I think it's that whole, where do you set the price to get the bell curve to shake out right?
Right.
I mean, it's like what we're hearing on our local radio. Great Clips has got a partnership with Atlanta Motor Speedway. All you have to do to get tickets to the winter race in Atlanta Motor Speedway is to go to Great Clips and get one haircut, and they will hand you a voucher for 2 Sprint Cup tickets or 2 tickets to the truck Xfinity combo race on that Saturday. Like, go get a $10 haircut, $15 haircut, and you can go to the race
with you and a friend.
You and a friend, or you can take your son, your daughter, your wife, your husband, however it shakes out. And I'm saying, as someone who's been rather disgruntled with Atlanta Motor Speedway over the last couple of years, do this. If you haven't seen a race before and you live in the Atlanta area, for sure, go get you some free tickets and go to the race and see what it's all about. Especially if you've never been, you're like, maybe I kind of like NASCAR on TV, but I've never been to one. I promise you, if you go to one,
now you're hooked.
You're hooked.
Yeah, you'll be where we're at, and in a few years we'll have you a podcast.
Right. I mean, we used to kind of just laze around the fraternity house back in the early 2000s and go, oh, there's a race. Let's watch a little bit of that thing. And then we finally decided to go to one in 2004, Atlanta Motor Speedway, and we've just pretty much been hooked ever since.
Well, it's easy when you're in a fraternity house and it's 1 p.m. and you just woke up on a Sunday morning, or we'll call that morning.
It's morning for college students, trust me.
It's nice and easy to watch cars go around in circles after a particularly, I would say, spirited Saturday night.
Sure, spirited Saturday nights in the college life end about 4 a.m. So at 1 p.m. the next day is certainly still the morning.
So let's move on to our newest segment. We're calling it Droppin Knowledge, y'all.
Droppin Knowledge, and this is something we lifted maybe from the Fighter and the Kid podcast with Brian Callen and Brendan Shaw. We've plugged them before. They're not asking us to do that. They're 3 million downloads a month. They don't need us talking about them. But Droppin Knowledge with the mayor. I can't sing. Droppin Knowledge with the mayor.
So every week, at least in the off season, maybe we'll just keep going. I don't know how many parts we can talk about. We might be down to nuts and bolts at some point, but there's a lot of parts on these.
There's a lot of parts.
But every week we want to talk about a certain part or a certain adjustment or something that the teams make, or just a certain part of the car that I don't know that might be interesting. This week we're going to talk about Wedge, and I think this is a great introduction topic because you'll hear people talk about I'm loose. I need you to put some wedge in, or I'm tight. I need you to take out some wedge. And they say, okay, I'll give them half a round of wedge, and blah 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 blah. And for the longest time, and even when I'm listening right now, I need it to be second nature of what it means, and it's not there quite yet.
Yeah.
But I have to think about, okay, he's taking out wedge. That means this. That means this. That means this. So let's talk about wedge and what wedge means. So I think to talk about wedge.
Can I stop you right there?
Yep. You can stop me right there.
So I want to do a mid-podcast shout-out.
Oh, sweet.
One of the things that really got me interested in the science of this sport was...
Wait, if you're going to shout out, we might as well.
Well, it's not to a person. Well, it is a person. Yeah.
All right.
Oh, cool. So mid-podcast shout-out, and this is... If there's any engineering ghost living in your brain where you just love science and you just can't really get enough of it, but you're also a NASCAR fan and you want to figure out how can I combine these two so that I can read something or learn something that I wouldn't otherwise be exposed to. I read a book back in 2008 called The Physics of NASCAR: How to Make Steel, Gas, and Rubber Equal Speed. And this book was written by a Texas A&M mechanical engineering professor named Deandra Leslie Pilecki, and it'll go through. I already kind of knew a lot of the stuff I was reading, but it sort of solidified where I was at, learning about wedge, learning about track bar, learning about aerodynamics. So,
we'll be talking about all of
that's
those
the
things
stuff
in the
we're going to be
off-season.
talking about in the off season. And this book will prepare you to be a better race fan. If you listen to your driver and your crew chief talk to each other on the radio, and they talk about loose or tight or wedge or track bar or pound here, pound there, blah, 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 you'll start to understand that what's wrong with the car, what the changes they're making. And that's what we're going to bring to you today, talking about wedge, because there's a ton of stuff you can make to do with the wedge on a car.
I think at some point we'll have to bring it all together. Once we say, all right, now let's say you're a crew chief and he's coming in for a pit stop and he's told you this and this and this. What do you do? I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Eventually we'll get to that. But there's a lot of things you can do to add grip or remove grip or do this. So which ones do you pick? So we'll get to that. But for today, we're talking about wedge. And to talk about wedge, you have to talk about springs. Right?
Yes.
So on all four of the wheels.
Let's talk. Why do we call it wedge?
Well, a wedge, let's say you were to have a spring and you stuck a wedge on the top of the spring to make it compress a little more, right?
Right.
If you do that, so it's within the same space, so let's say it's 12 inches tall spring, and you put a 1-inch wedge in there, now the spring's only 11 inches, it's compressed a little more.
Right.
Right? So that's essentially what you're doing when you're making a wedge adjustment, is putting something in there. Now, they don't actually put something in there, they adjust something so that it pushes the spring down.
Yep.
Right, and so that's putting wedge in. So
They have
that's
a threaded rod with
Right.
with a hex bolt.
Right, and so to talk about wedge, you have to talk
hex
about
nut.
springs. And every one of the at every one of the wheels, of course, there's a spring. It's your suspension system, right?
Yep.
So what your suspension does is it keeps the car on the ground, right? So think of it going over a speed bump. You go over a speed bump if you have no springs, your front wheels are going to kind of come off the ground a little bit, and then your back wheels are kind of come off the ground a little bit as you go over the bump. If you got springs on there, it makes the spring compress and doesn't put all the body weight and all the engine weight and all the car weight on the tires, right?
Or on the frame, really.
Or on the frame.
Well, the tires for
anything
sure,
else.
because
Yep.
the tires act as the first line of defense for
Right. So
suspension.
The springs keep the car on the ground in an undulating, if you will, track. And that's in NASCAR too. Just keeps the car on the track. So that gives you grip. So what do we talk about when we talk about wedge? What we want to do is we already talked about it, change the compression of that spring. Are we going to make it compress more or less?
Right. So what happens if you put wedge in and you compress the spring? What is the mechanical result of having done that?
So the best analogy that I saw, and I talked to you about this before the podcast, is think of it like a table. And think of a table and it's got 4 legs. And let's represent those legs and call them the wheels on the car, right? We have a table here, and me and you're in front of a table. Let's say you have your left front and your right front, your left rear and your right rear of those. The only adjustments they have with a bolt or with the wrench is left rear and right rear, and they can make that change through the back window of the car,
through the rear windshield.
Right.
Yep.
So let's think about it this way. Let's say you take a wedge or a block of wood and you stick it underneath the left rear table leg, right? What you've done,
I'm following you.
Yep. What you've done is you've made the weight of the table put more weight on that left rear, and also made it so that the front right, the opposite corner, has weight on it, and the other two legs, the other two corners, are light, and you can actually seesaw the table between them, right?
Yes.
So think about it that way, and if you go to a restaurant and you ever stuck a coaster underneath one of the legs of a wobbly table, you've just made a wedge adjustment.
You made a wedge adjustment. That's exactly right.
So what we do with wedge adjustments, so let's think about what happens on the track, right? So let's say that you have that when you're coming around the track, if you think about going around the track, and we're making left-hand turns here.
Yeah,
right?
And for the sake of, just like you make assumptions in an engineering class or a physics class about constants in order to describe a very particular thing, we're going to leave aerodynamics out of it today because that plays a role too. What we're talking about is purely mechanical grip.
Right, exactly. So let's say you're coming around the curve, right? When you're coming around at high speed, and y'all, if you've ever taken a left-hand turn way too hard, what does your body do? Right? Your body's flinging to the right, and so is all the weight of the car flinging over to the right, and it's making your right side tires have more pressure on them, right?
Yep.
Well, if you don't have enough spring in your right rear, right, that's going to make it light on that side, right?
That's right.
So it's going to make it light on that side. When it's light on that side, it doesn't grip down hard enough when all that weight comes across.
Well, or it does one of two things. You're right. I mean, you lose the coefficient of friction on the right rear because all the weight's there and it can't hold it.
Right.
You've got this angular momentum friction thing happening. Yeah, and it car rolls over to the right and then gets light on the left side and
on the left
front and the rear.
Yep.
And so you only have one tire gripping.
Right. Right.
And that's a loose condition, y'all.
That's a loose condition. Now, with a loose condition, you have a few options there. But let's say it's loose and you want to tighten it up. You want to make, because what loose does, that means you're not getting the grip. That means your tail end is swinging out and you're just not getting the grip.
Yeah, they call it oversteer and open wheel. It just means that you don't really need the steering wheel to go around the corner.
Right. The car is oversteering itself.
Right.
So what does that mean? Go back to our table leg. What that means is on the left rear, you've got too much wedge in there.
Yeah, too much wedge.
And it's making the right rear wobbly, right? So what's the adjustment then? If on the left rear, what's the adjustment if you're loose?
Well, it depends on where you're center lined.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's going to be driver and crew chief preference. So if it could be that you don't have enough wedge in the right rear. It could be that you have too much in the left rear.
Yep.
So you could turn down the right rear jack bolt to add wedge and add spring rate, or you could turn up the left rear jack bolt to release spring rate.
Right. And if you think of down and up, that's the same thing as just compression and decompression. So
That's
when they
right.
say
It's relaxed versus compressed.
right. So he says, your driver says, I'm loose coming out of one. Let's just say I'm loose all over the track. I'm just loose. You'll hear the drivers loose. They'll just say that over the intercom.
Yeah, and a lot of times there'll be an expletive that goes with it.
Yeah, bleep it, bleep it, bleep. You lose. We got our holy bleeps. You'll hear their holy bleeps. So the crew chief might say, okay, we're loose. We want to go one round up in the left rear wedge, right?
Right.
So
that's one way to fix it.
That's one way to fix it. We might go one round down in the right rear wedge.
Right, and that's all based on how the rest of the car is balanced.
Right. And so I don't know if there's a whole lot more to say about wedge right now unless you have more. I think that's
I think that's a lot to download for new listeners.
But the thing with wedge is just springs. We're just talking about springs, and really we're only talking about the left rear and the right rear.
Well, for anybody out there,
let's talk about tight though.
Okay, let's talk about tight.
Let's talk about tight. Tight
means we're going into the corner and the car won't turn. It just goes straight on you, which means you have to get off the gas and turn the steering wheel more than you want to. So what do you think that means about front end?
Well, if you ever been in a car and you're trying to take a pretty sharp turn at high speed,
the thing just keeps going.
The car just keeps going forward. Not that it's screeching or nothing. It's just that, whoa, I got to take a way wider line than I was expecting.
You chose too aggressive of a line for the speed and suspension of the car.
Right, and we're talking about 40, 50 miles an hour. These guys are doing 180, 200.
Yeah.
So if you're tight, what's happening is you're getting a lot of weight put on that right rear, right? And that right rear has a lot of wedge in it, so it's pushing back, right? And so what that's doing is causing a lot of force and a lot of momentum in that right rear to keep it kind of going forward when you're trying to turn.
Yeah, that could be one of the possibilities. The other possibility is you're going into the corner and the car is squatting on the rear end and the right front tire's not gripping.
That's right. So the right front or the right front tire's not gripping. So when you try to turn it, it's just not turning. Remember, all the weight's on the right side of the car, so there's no weight on the. I say all the weight. Obviously, they're not coming off the ground.
Yeah,
but
most of it though.
A lot of weight's on that right side. So your left side front is not getting any turn in it because its
car's rolled over on the right side.
There's no weight there. If also your right front doesn't have any weight on it, you're just going to keep barreling straight.
You just keep going straight.
So if you're tight, that's understeer.
Right.
The car is understeering itself, if you will, and
you're doesn't want to turn. It's a drag. Right. It's a drag race car at that point.
Right. So now, what do you have to do?
What do you do if you've decided that wedge is the opportunity? Then you've got you almost the exact same set of circumstances as when you're loose.
Mm-hmm.
So if you need the right front to grip, then you got to put wedge in the left rear.
Right. So remember, wedge in means we got to make that left.
If you prop up the left corner, you're going to put more weight on the right front corner.
Yep. Just like our table, when we put the wedge under the left corner, we're going to get more weight on the right front, and the other two are going to be seesawing again.
Right. And similarly, center line and how you're set up. If you're too soft on the right rear, and that's what's causing the right front to be off the ground, then you're going to put wedge in.
Yep, you're going to.
Or sorry, you're going to take it out.
Or drive wedge into the right rear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, you can make both changes depending on the way the car is set up on the right side.
Yep.
So wedge is a very interesting thing, and we're talking about a very complicated thing that's described very simply with a simple tool, a wedge.
Yep.
But there's so many factors that go into whether a crew chief decides that a wedge adjustment is what he wants to do.
Right, and that's what we were talking about, maybe later when we're talking about track bar, when we're talking about maybe spring rubbers, maybe we're talking about all kinds of things.
Well, let's talk about that because that's a part of wedge. So
that is, yeah.
One of the things, so you'll hear the crew chief call for a quarter round, a half round, a whole round, a round and a half, or 2 rounds, and that's a huge change. But that is the most a crew chief will ever ask for during a regular green flag stop or even a yellow flag stop because of how long it takes the tire changer or the tire carrier, depending on who's making the adjustment, to do that.
And remember, rounds of wedge just means all he's doing is putting a wrench in there and going around in a circle 2 times to drive that screw down or up.
That's right.
Compress or release a spring.
And if you think about it, the way they measure this kind of thing, or what the significance of the adjustment is, they roll the car after they build it. They roll the car onto 4 scales. So each corner of the car is on an individual scale, and then they run the wedge down and back up, and they see how it changes the other 3 corners.
Yep.
And so the center line, how much of a change is. So I think the last time that I was really digging into this subject, the particular racetrack and the particular car setup, a whole round meant an 8-pound change. So if you put a round up in the right rear corner, then you took 8 pounds off the right rear corner, and vice versa.
Yep.
And then the weight distributes, think of the table situation where
Yep.
they're peg legs, so you get a rocking situation versus in a car it'll roll on the springs. But so if you find that you're so loose or tight that you need more than 2 rounds, then you're going to stick a spring rubber in.
Yep.
because a spring rubber typically is the equivalent of doing 4 rounds.
Now, what's a spring rubber?
Spring rubber. Okay, so a spring rubber is, at its simplest description, is exactly that.
It's exactly that.
It's a spring. It's a way to increase spring rate far more significantly and faster than it would be to screw the jack bolt down or up 4 times.
Right.
And they're typically already in the pocket. They're inside the car already. So either already in the spring, because that's the way they set the car up, so we'll pull it if we need to, or it's already hanging from the shock assembly, and you just push it in.
Right, and this is a physical piece.
Yeah, it is a chunk of rubber that is designed to fit perfectly in the coils of the spring.
Now, what's that do to the spring?
Increases the spring rate significantly.
Right, so we're putting in 4 rounds of wedge when we put in a spring rubber.
Right, in.
Yep,
and we're pulling 4 rounds out if we yank a spring rubber.
Yep, and when we say in, we mean down.
Screwing down the jack bolt. Yeah, down on the right rear or left rear jack bolt.
Yep, hopefully this all makes sense. I've just had a boatload of fun in the last 15 minutes doing that.
It's a great exercise. It helps you understand, like, so what do they do? Like, for us, if all we did was go to a race with regular old safety earplugs and watch cars go around, I don't know that we would still be race fans. So what I'm really saying,
and that was the first thing we did, and what that gave us was the hunger to know really what's going on behind the scenes here.
Right. Well, and a friend of mine who was far more advanced at the time as a race fan, I want to say probably in the 05, 06 time frame, had the subscription to NASCAR scanner on NASCAR.com. And once I could listen to what's being said, I had to know more.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to understand what they were saying because it's important for me to understand. One of the ways I really engage with a race is when the driver says he's feeling one condition or another, and the crew chief says, well, this is the kind of change we're going to make, I can go, oh, he's tight.
Yeah.
Or, oh, he's loose.
Yeah.
And I don't even have to hear him say it.
Yeah.
Like, I just know we're going to make this, we're going to put air here, or we're going to put rounds in or out of this jack bolt or that jack bolt. And I know what's wrong with the car. And to me, that's way, like, that engages me. That brings me into the team. Like, I'm part of the team right now. Like, what change would I make? That's what's so fun. Now, and you said that a minute ago, is listening to what the driver's saying about the run. I was like, all right, so what's your car doing now? And he says, blah, 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 blah. And we pause it. All right, what change would you make?
Right. And so that's, I think it's really fun. And your advanced topic that I'm sure we'll get to eventually is driver says he's loose in 1 and tight in 3. Now what?
Now what? Right.
So
it's supposed to be the same kind of corner.
Yeah, right. This is the same car in the same corners. What's going on?
Yeah.
So we'll get to that, and we'll have fun with it. I actually don't know the answer right now.
I don't either. It certainly depends on the racetrack. It's probably going to be
for sure. It's going to be
Phoenix
different.
Or one of the quad ovals where you have a different angle of approach.
Right, or Pocono or something.
Right.
For totally different stuff going on. So. There you go, guys. Our first Droppin Knowledge. I really hope you enjoy that.
We dropped about 10 minutes of it, too.
That
was awesome. That was fun.
Yeah, that's fun. We'll keep doing that. Send us requests if you like. If there's something on the car that you don't understand or that you think we ought to talk about, we'll do the research. Trust me on that.
If you want us to learn about it and figure it out for you, that's kind of what we're interested in doing.
Exactly.
I need to step away real quick and check on the brisket.
All right.
If you want to BS a little bit.
No, go ahead.
Take me
go ahead. That's fine.
Unless I have to stoke the fire.
Well, you might have to stoke the fire. If that's the case, it's all right. But yeah, that brisket coming out. We're really excited. Probably in the next hour and a half, we'll be taking that thing off. And boy, howdy, it's going to be a real meal. This is, I think I already said it, a stick to your ribs kind of meal with the collard greens and the mac and cheese. And everything. Maybe I'll post a recipe or something at some point on how to do the mac and cheese, but y'all can look it up. It ain't no big deal. Next thing we're going to talk about, though, it is Saturday, December 12th, after all the main championship games from all the conferences in college football. How's that brisket looking, Sherwin?
Oh, it's good. It's around 210, so I opened up the gates a little bit, let a little more air in there.
Sounds good to me. It is Heisman Saturday. Is what it is. 8 p.m. tonight, probably an hour and a half or so from now, they're going to be starting the announcement process. Now, I'm as much as I like more information on NASCAR stuff when it comes to stuff like college football and I shouldn't say college football in general, but maybe just these ceremonies in general. There's I told you earlier, about 30 seconds of that whole thing that I'm interested in.
I'm not interested to the lead up. I watched plenty of football. I didn't get to see Christian McCaffrey play very much. But him being a freshman means we'll get to see plenty of him next year.
Yep.
But I saw Derrick Henry play several times, and I unfortunately had to watch Deshaun Watson play my team, which was not a good result, or our team, I should say.
Yeah.
But he's.
But otherwise, I mean, what a talent.
Yeah, I mean, it's really. Yeah, they're all really good. I'm rooting for Deshaun because that would be Clemson's first Heisman, and that's a local,
ACC and
kind of a local school. Yep. My dad's alma mater. Blah 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 blah.
Derrick Henry, I think, I feel like he's kind of the favorite.
Odds-on favorite for sure.
Right.
The guy's a beast.
Christian McCaffrey, he's freshman, so I think it's kind of tough in that respect as a freshman to get it. Who's some recent? Has there been freshmen recently? I don't know enough about this topic as much as I should.
I don't think we've had a true freshman win.
Yeah.
Did Johnny Football win as a redshirt freshman? I think so.
Okay.
I think he won as a redshirt freshman.
He was redshirt all the way. Yeah. So, and Deshaun. So I think it comes down to Derrick Henry and Deshaun Watson. What Deshaun Watson has going on for him, though, 13-0.
13-0, number one in the nation.
Yeah. If he's not, I guess his argument would be not that he's going to argue.
Though he's the quarterback, which means he touches the ball in every play.
Right. So his argument is, what could he have done differently to win the Heisman?
No kidding.
Yeah. What else do I have to do to win the Heisman? Except go 13-0 and be number one in the nation and going for championship. Be the only team that's 13-0.
The only undefeated team.
Yep. So we'll see. What
are you going to do?
8 o'clock or whenever they announce it at like 8:45, 9, whatever it is.
Well, I think that's what won Jameis Winston the Heisman was. Well, he's the quarterback. His team was undefeated. They beat everybody. Mm-hmm. What else do you want?
Want a big old plate of crab legs. What I want.
Was he? He was the one that was a true freshman. That's it.
Was he?
Winston was a true.
Okay.
No. Redshirt freshman. Football. Johnny effing Football was a redshirt sophomore, I believe.
Okay.
And he won.
Got it.
Y'all feel free to pick on us if we're not getting this right. Some of these details, you'll notice that there's some details we care so much about we just absolutely refuse to get it wrong, and then there's some we're just kind of sitting around the campfire BSing.
Right.
Like, we think we remember, but we don't. Like, I'm not going to get on here and look everything up on Google. That's not fun.
Right.
It's not fun for us. It's not fun for y'all.
I made sure I got their names right. That's all.
Yeah, I like the names.
I couldn't remember McCaffrey's first name earlier.
Yeah.
That'll happen. That brings me to the end of the topic list. What else we got going on today? I think we just said it.
Did we say it all?
I think we said it all.
We talked about the fights. We talked about the Heisman. We just finished that. We talked about, the mayor. Dropping knowledge with the mayor.
That's right.
Mayor dropped some knowledge on us, and
we're fixing.
Army's fixing to get back in this game with a big catch down the middle.
Announcer Sherwin, I'll just be the color commentator.
That's all right. I'll be the play-by-play.
Yeah, I can do.
Whole lot of America going on in Philadelphia. It's such a cool thing, the Army-Navy game. I try to watch it as often as I can. It's just celebration of American Armed Forces. It's just something to feel good about.
Amen. So let's close this out before we bore everybody to death here. I hope y'all enjoyed Droppin Knowledge because we're going to keep doing it now that we've done it. And that
was fun.
That's pretty cool stuff. I hope the people liked it. Y'all, once again, this is the Pregame Engineer Tailgate Mayor Racing Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at PETM Podcast, and we're always doing the Periscope on these things. We
do have 4.
All right.
Somebody stuck around to the end.
Appreciate you sticking around. I'm Tailgate Mayor. You can follow me on Twitter at Tailgate Mayor.
And I'm Andrew Sherwin. I'm Pregame Engineer on Twitter at PregameENG. And also on Instagram, same handle. Periscope, same handle. And that goes for the podcast as well.
And hit us up on the G-Chat.
And the G-Chat. We got the Gmail. PETMpodcast@gmail.com. Email us your long-form questions or cuss us out or whatever you want to do. And Interception Navy.
Oh, man. Well, it's turned into a game. I hope y'all turn it on and watch this thing with a couple minutes left in the fourth. Either way, we'll talk to y'all next week. Have a good one.
Thumbs up.